Hey, this is Mark, and you're welcome to AUTOSAYS. Look, I need you to think about something for a second. When's the last time you saw a small, affordable car advertised during prime time? Can't remember, right? Now think about this. When's the last time you saw a massive truck or SUV dominating your screen with dramatic music and mountain roads? Probably last night. There's a reason for that, and it's not because Americans suddenly grew 3 feet taller and needed more headroom. The truth is, you've been quietly guided, pushed, and frankly manipulated into buying bigger vehicles. And the wild part? It's been happening for decades right under your nose, and it's made automakers absolutely filthy rich. If you want to know exactly how they pulled this off and why your wallet's been taking the hit, smash that like button right now and subscribe, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you see every vehicle on the road. Let's go back to 1973, a year that changed everything. The oil crisis hit America like a sledgehammer. Gas stations had lines wrapped around blocks. People were panicking. Suddenly, those big, beautiful land yachts, the Cadillacs and Lincolns that defined American success, they became expensive jokes. Everyone wanted small, fuel-efficient cars, and guess who had them ready to ship? Japan. Honda, Toyota, Datsun, they flooded American driveways with tiny, reliable cars that sipped gas instead of chugging it. Detroit was bleeding money and fast. American automakers were in full crisis mode. They tried making small cars, they really did, but here's the problem. Small cars have thin profit margins. You might sell a compact for 15 grand, but you're only pocketing maybe $1,000 after costs. That's nothing. Meanwhile, a luxury car or a big truck, you could clear 5, even 10,000 in pure profit per vehicle. So Detroit had a choice: adapt and make less money, or find a way to convince Americans they needed big vehicles again. Guess which one they picked? But they couldn't just snap their fingers and reverse consumer attitudes overnight. They needed a strategy, a long game, and honestly, it was brilliant in the most cynical way possible. Enter the minivan in 1984. Chrysler released the Dodge Caravan and Plymouth Voyager, and they marketed it as the perfect family vehicle. It wasn't a truck, it wasn't a gas guzzler, it was practical. Soccer moms loved it. But here's what you didn't notice: it was built on a truck chassis. That matters, and we'll get to why in a minute. The minivan opened the door, literally and figuratively, to bigger vehicles being seen as family-friendly again. Then in the 1990s, automakers made their masterstroke. They took that truck chassis idea and said, what if we make it look tough, capable, and luxurious? The SUV was born, and it exploded. The Ford Explorer, the Chevy Blazer, Jeep Grand Cherokee, these weren't just cars, they were lifestyle statements. You weren't just driving, you were conquering. You weren't just commuting, you were ready for adventure, even if the only adventure was a Costco run. And here's the kicker: these SUVs were classified as light trucks. Why does that matter? Because of something called CAFE standards, corporate average fuel economy standards. These were regulations that forced automakers to meet certain fuel efficiency targets, but light trucks had way more relaxed requirements than passenger cars. So automakers could build these massive, inefficient SUVs, slap a light truck label on them, dodge the strict fuel rules, and rake in those fat profit margins. It was a loophole big enough to drive a Suburban through, and they exploited it to perfection. You thought you were choosing freedom and safety, but really you were choosing their profit model. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Mark, but people wanted SUVs, right? That's just supply and demand. Sure, but let's talk about how that demand was manufactured. Automakers spent billions, and I mean billions, on advertising that played on your emotions. They showed SUVs climbing mountains, fording rivers, protecting families from unseen dangers. They made you feel like driving a sedan was risky, like you needed this big, tall vehicle to keep your kids safe, even though crash data didn't always support that. They created fear, then sold you the solution, and it worked like crazy. By the 2000s, SUVs and trucks dominated American roads, but we're not done yet, because the game was about to level up. Gas prices started climbing again in the mid-2000s. People got nervous about their big SUVs. So what did automakers do? Did they go back to small cars? Nope, they invented the crossover. The crossover is genius from a profit standpoint. It looks like an SUV, it feels like an SUV, but it's technically built on a car platform, which means slightly better fuel economy and lower manufacturing costs. You get the appearance of capability and safety, automakers get cheaper production but still charge you SUV prices. Everyone wins, except your bank account and the environment. But hey, details, right? Brands like the Honda CR-V, Toyota RAV4, and Ford Escape printed money. And here's something most people don't realize. These crossovers cost nearly the same to build as a sedan, but they sell for thousands more. You're paying a premium for height and styling, not actual capability. Most crossovers never see dirt, yet you're paying off-road prices for an on-road vehicle. It's brilliant marketing. Now let's talk about trucks, because this is where things get absolutely wild. The Ford F-Series has been America's best-selling vehicle for 40 years. 40 years! These trucks used to be work vehicles, tools for farmers, contractors, people who needed them. Now, they're luxury vehicles with leather seats, heated steering wheels, massaging functions, and price tags pushing $80,000, even $90,000. The average transaction price for a new F-150 is over $50,000 now, $50,000 for a truck. And the profit margin on these? Automakers can make $15,000 to $20,000 per truck. Compare that to a sedan where they're lucky to clear $2,000. You see why they pushed you toward trucks. But here's the thing that should really make you mad. While they were pushing bigger vehicles, they quietly killed sedans. Ford discontinued almost all its cars in America. No more Fusion, no more Taurus, no more Focus. GM axed the Cruze, the Impala, and others. Why? Because even though sedans sold decently, they weren't profitable enough. Automakers decided they'd rather force you into a more expensive vehicle than give you an affordable option. Your choice was taken away, not because sedans were bad, but because they weren't profitable enough. That's not market forces, that's market manipulation. And if you think electric vehicles are going to change this, think again. Look at what's being electrified first. Big trucks and SUVs. The electric F-150 Lightning, the Hummer EV, the Rivian R1T, these are all massive, expensive vehicles. The cheapest ones start at $50,000 and go way up from there. Automakers learned their lesson. Americans will pay premium prices for big vehicles, so why electrify small, affordable cars when you can electrify trucks and charge luxury prices?
Even Tesla, the supposed disruptor, their cheapest vehicle is still $40,000, and their Cybertruck is a six-figure flex machine for most configurations. The shift to electric isn't changing the business model, it's reinforcing it. So what's the end game here? Well, the average new vehicle price in America is now over $48,000. $48,000! That's not sustainable for most families. Auto loans are stretching to 6, 7, even 8 years. People are underwater on their loans, meaning they owe more than the car's worth. And used car prices have exploded because new cars are unaffordable. You're trapped in a cycle where you're either overpaying for new or overpaying for used, and automakers created this situation by systematically eliminating affordable options and pushing bigger, more expensive vehicles. They engineered a market where your only choice is to pay more. Here's what really gets me. This whole strategy has external costs nobody talks about. Bigger vehicles mean more emissions, even with better fuel economy. They mean more dangerous roads because in a crash between an SUV and a sedan, the sedan loses badly every time. Pedestrian deaths have skyrocketed because these tall front ends create blind spots and hit people higher on their bodies. Our infrastructure, roads, and bridges, they're taking more wear and tear from heavier vehicles, but automakers don't pay those costs. You do, through taxes, insurance, medical bills, and environmental damage. They profit, you pay the hidden price. Now, I'm not saying everyone who bought an SUV or truck got scammed. Some people genuinely need them. If you're towing, hauling, driving off-road regularly, a truck makes sense. If you have 3 kids and a dog, a big vehicle might be practical. But be honest, most people bought big vehicles because they felt like they had to, because smaller cars disappeared from lots, because ads made them feel unsafe in anything smaller, because status and image got wrapped up in vehicle size. Automakers spent decades engineering that feeling, and it paid off massively for their bottom line. So what can you do about this? First, recognize the game being played. When you see ads for massive trucks and SUVs, understand you're being sold a profit margin, not just a vehicle. Second, if you're in the market, really assess what you need versus what you're being pushed toward. That crossover might be nice, but could a sedan or hatchback do the job for 10 grand less? Third, support policies that close loopholes like the light truck classification that started this whole mess. And fourth, vote with your wallet. Used cars, smaller vehicles, brands that still offer affordable options, reward them with your business. The only language automakers truly speak is profit, so hit them where it counts. Look, the automotive industry has always been about making money. That's not shocking. But what happened over the last 40 years was a coordinated effort to reshape what Americans drive, not based on what we needed, but on what was most profitable to sell us. They used regulations, marketing, psychology, and systematic product elimination to guide us into bigger, more expensive vehicles. And it worked so well that most people never even notice it happening. You thought you were making free choices, but the options were carefully curated. The scary part? They're doing it again right now with electric vehicles, using the same playbook just with batteries instead of gas tanks. The profit strategy hasn't changed, just the power source. But now you know, now you see the pattern, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every ad, every new model release, every discontinued sedan, it all makes sense now. So next time you're on the road surrounded by massive trucks and SUVs, remember, this didn't happen by accident. This was designed, calculated, and executed perfectly. And unless something changes, it's only going to get more extreme. If this opened your eyes, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and share this video, because this is exactly the kind of truth the automotive industry hopes you never piece together. I'm Mark, this has been AUTOSAYS, and I'll see you in the next one where we keep pulling back the curtain on this industry.